Hello and welcome to this webinar. Myself, Dr. N.K. Rathore, former Director, Center for Sericulture and Biological Pest Management, Nagpur University, Nagpur. Good morning to everyone, dear student, colleague, dear friends. I am thankful to organizer for inviting me as a resource person in this webinar and give opportunity to speak before you, dear friends. Today, I am going to deliver lecture on sericulture and I will give brief information about sericulture, types of silkworms and their maintenance. So, what is sericulture? Sericulture is a rearing of silkworm for the production of the cocoons. So, sericulture is an agro-based industry. India is the second largest silk producing country in the world after China. Sericulture is the rearing of silkworm for the production of silk. Silk industry comprises of three distinct activities, namely cultivation of host plant, rearing of silkworms, and rearing of cocoons. There are four different types of silkworms feeding on specific host plant. Under the non-bulbary silkworms, there is a tussar silkworm, Anthera mylitta, Muga silkworm, Anthera samensis, Eri silkworm, Philosamia ricini. Mulberry silkworm is a bombyx mori, feeds on the mulberry plant. So let us see about the non-mulberry silkworm. Under this, first of all, we discuss about the tussar silkworm. The tussar silkworms are wild in nature. They are cultivated in place where their host plant are available of the food plants. Generally the food plant cultivation of food plant is avoided. It needs outdoor rearing. In Maharashtra, tussar sericulture is reared in four districts of Vidarbha, Gadchiroli, Chandrapur, Bhandara, and the Gondia. The larvae of Anthera mylitta are polyphagous. They can feed on leaves of several host plants like arjun, azan, ber, sal, sam, and sida, but they like arjun and azan. After mating, female starts laying the eggs. It lays about 100 to 150 eggs. The egg hatch into the 9 to 10 days during the summer, and it took about 15 to 20 days in winter. The hatched larvae, generally they are green in color with hairs on the cuticle. During the larval period, they molt 4 times in the larval period and have 5 larval stages. It took about 30 to 55 days during the summer and the rainy season, and but the longer the period is in the during the winter, it took about 50 to 60 days. The mature larvae spins cocoons, which are hard with the different colors according to the types of the plant leaves they feed. Tussar silkworms are natural shades, pale gold, pinkish honey, and creamish in green. The successful of tussar sericulture always depend on the survival rate during the larval up development because it requires outdoor rearing. They face the biotic and the abiotic factor for that purpose. That's why the yield of this tussar silkworm is very less as compared to the other silkworm. The mortality rate is higher because it faces heavy rains and other pest and predator also. So you can see this slide shows the host plant of the tussar silkworm First one is the terminal Arjuna, commonly called as Arjun, and second one is the terminal Tomentosa, commonly called as Azam. They feeds on these two host plant also. This slide shows the life cycle of the silkworms. The first you can see is the eggs. They are rounded in shape with like a jar and they hatch into the first instar larvae. You can see the hatched larvae, they are yellowish in color. Then they passes from first mold, second mold, third mold. In this way they passes four mold and five stages and reaches to the fifth instar larva. It is called as also the mature larva. When they get mature, it is measuring about 4 to 5 inches in the length. They are greenish in color. Later on, they reaches the mature stage and form the with the help of peduncle, they form the cocoons, and the cocoon is hardened. You can see in the you see in the slide, is the cocoons are two cocoons are there. Smaller one is the of the male and bigger one is the female. And you can see the pupae of this silkworms, and then they emerge as an adult. In this way, they complete three generations per year. So it is a brief about the Tussar silkworm. Now we can look at see we have to see about the Muga silkworm. Muga silkworms commonly found in the Assams. The scientific name of Muga silkworm is Anthera assamensis, belongs to the family Saturnidae. It is a golden bright in color. Muga derived from the Assami words, or Muga means yellowish. Muga is an Assami word, indicates the golden brown amber color of the cocoons. It is distributed in the wild state, however, extend from the Himalaya to Nagaland and the Kachar district of Assam and the South Tripura. The Muga silkworm is multivoltine, passes through four molds and five instars generally. 4 to 5 crops are raised in a year. Muga silkworm is a polyphagous pest. It feeds on the leaves of several kinds of tree, but they likes the som and the soyalu tree are the two principal host food plants of the Muga silkworm. The host plants are cultivated through the propagation by seeds, vegetatively by air layering. The plants are trained and pruned regularly. In the next slide, you can see the host plants of the Muga silkworm. That is the som. First one is the som, and another one is the soyalu. They feed on them and complete their life cycle. And this slide shows the life cycle of Muga silkworm. It's very similar to the Tussar silkworm. The eggs hatches into the first instar, first to the second, second to the third, third to the fourth, and then fifth. So in this way, they're passing through the egg, larva, pupa, and the adult. The larval period is the most longer, having longer duration, and passes the four molds and reaches to the fifth instar larva. Fifth instar larva is a grow and is very similar to the Tussar silkworm, and full grown size form into the 9 to the 10 days. Then it when it we get mature, it comes from the host tree to the downwards in search of the spinning of the cocoons. With the help of the leaves of dried leaves of the host plants, it spin the cocoons and form the golden type of cocoons. It's a very costly and look the and when you drawn the silk from the cocoons looks like a very golden. It's too much costly. The yield of this particular silk is very less as compared to the other because only 2% of the production is as compared to the mulberry and other silks. It is a very precious silk. It's found only in the India. India has the monopoly because due to the some specific environment in the Assam. This is all about the Muga silkworm. Then now we see another wild type of silkworm, that is Eris silkworm. It is commonly called as, or scientific name of the Eris silkworm is Philosamia ricini. The distributed in the district in the state Assam and in the border district of the West Bengal. The silkworm is a multi-volatile, reared indoor 5 to 6 times in a year. Optimum condition it requires 24 to 28 degrees centigrade temperature and also have required 85 to 90% of humidity. The adult moth emerges from the morning to midday and after emergence, immediately mating with the male and lay the eggs. It lay the eggs, female lay the eggs about 350 to 500 eggs. Hatching is depend on the environmental condition. It took 8 days and sometimes it took the 8 day, 20 days. In between 8 to 10 days, again the environmental condition play an important role in the hatching of the eggs. Erysipcum also a polyphagus that feeds on the castor plant and the casero plant. Erysipcums are multivolatile in nature, can pass 6 life cycles in a year. So these worms are totally domesticated and reared indoor rearing. The newly hatched larvae are yellow in color with some bristles, or you can say that they have some hair-like structure on the body. Initially, they feed on the soft castor leaves, but later stages they feed on the mature leaves and they undergone for the spinning. So the larval period is the longer period in the life cycle of the Erysipcum. It took about 30 to 32 days for the spinning of the cocoons among the leaves. So now you can see in this slide the host plant of the Erysipcum. That is, first one is the castor plant. Scientific name is Ricinus communicus, and the second one is the Casero, Leanthus exhala. So they feed on them. So you can see in this slide, there's a life cycle of Erysipcum. Here you can see the Erysipcum, the female of the Erysipcum lay the eggs in the club. It lay the eggs 350 to 500 and they hatch into the first instar. Then in this way, they have 5 stages and the 4 molds and reaches to the cocoon formation or spinning of the cocoons. The adult is a blackish and having a whitish lining on this. In this way, it completes its life cycle on the castor and the casero plants. So, dear friends, here we already discussed about the non-mulberry silkworm, or you can say the wild silkworms in brief, because due to the lack of time, we cannot go in the detail about the non-mulberry silkworms. So, but another silkworm is that is a mulberry silkworms, commonly called as is a commercial silk, or the it belongs to the family Bombycidae, and the scientific name is Silk Bombyx mori. The major commercial silk produced in the world comes from the mulberry silk. Sericulture is practiced in India and it is a second largest producer of silk in the world. It has been identified as employment-oriented industry. Sericulture industry is rated as second largest employer in India. Mulberry silk comes from Silkworm bombyx mori. So it feeds on only on the mulberry plant. You can say the mulberry is the only prerequisite food or sole food for the Silkworm bombyx mori. In India, the major mulberry silk producing states are Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and Jammu Kashmir, which together accounts contribution of silk is 92% of the total mulberry raw silk production in the country. So this is the life cycle of the Silkworm bombyx mori. As you know, it is also belongs to the Lepidoptera. So it's have the life cycle of the Silkworm bombyx mori passing through egg, larva, pupa, and the adult. So female lays about 400 to 500 eggs and they hatch into the first instar larva. And then first instar larva is a very tiny, black tiny, and it is a very small and looks blackish in color. and it's on the mulberry leaves. So passing the first mold, then transform into the second, then second pass the mold, then third, third to fourth, fourth to fifth. In this way, it also have five larval stages and the four molds. The larval period is about 28 to 30 days. Again, it depending on the environmental conditions. As soon as it goes in the fifth install stage, they are the Horaceous feeder. They feed mulberry voraciously and accumulate silk protein in the silk gland. So then they spin the cocoons. You can see here the spin the cocoons and the then larva transform into the cocoons, and then the larva again transform into the pupa, and pupa remain for 10 days inside the cocoon and make the hole and emerge as an adult. In this way, it completes its life cycle within a 30 to 35 days, including the adult also. Okay, then when we are going to start the commercial rearing of the silkworm, we require mulberry plantation, then silkworm rearing and their appliances. So let us discuss about mulberry plantation. Mulberry constitutes a only satisfactory food of Silkworm Bombyx mori. Mulberry plant belongs to the genus Morus, and there are a number of varieties in the nature, but particularly we use Morus alba, Morus indica, Morus serrata, and Morus lativula. Nowadays, Pune variety is also used for the rearing of the silkworm. The mulberry is grown in any kind of grown in wide range of climatic condition varying from temperate to tropical region. It requires temperature between 15 to 30 degrees centigrade and rainfall about 600 to 2,500 millimeter. In India, it can be grown in any environmental condition and you will get the foliage throughout the year. Okay, and it also requires the for the grown of mulberry plant, it requires loamy and the red sandy soil. So if you have a mulberry plantation, then you can think about to rear the silkworm, commercial rearing of the silkworms. Mulberry silkworm being completely is domesticated, it is reared inside the house and requires some essential equipments to facilitate the rearing of silkworm. Silkworm rearing demands certain specified environmental conditions, particularly the temperature and the humidity. For the commercial rearing, first of all, we require rearing house. Rearing house should meet certain specifications as the silkworm are very sensitive to weather conditions like humidity and temperature. The rearing room should have proper ventilation, optimum temperature, and proper humidity. It should be ensured that dampness, stagnation of air, exposure to bright light, and strong wind should be avoided. Then we have a rearing house, and to start the rearing, we require some appliances such as rearing stand and 12 rearing tray, foam pad, chopsticks, cleaning nets, hygrometer, thermometer mountages, and humidifier, etc. So, first of all, before the start the rearing, disinfection of rearing house and the equipment is necessary with the help of 2% formaldehyde solution or the bleaching powder. You spray on the all those equipments and also disinfect the rearing walls to avoid any kind of infection. So now we can see how can we start. We have a mulberry plantation, we have a rearing house, then we have equipment, then we can start the rearing. So in this, the rearing, the most important step in the silkworm rearing is the procurement of the quality seeds from the diseases. Seeds are obtained from the silkworm seed centers, or you can say the granny centers, which are for the production of the disease-free seeds. called as DFLs. We of pure and hybrid quantities raised in large in the form of loose egg or egg. You can see this is the egg box having a 20,000 or 50 DFLs of the silkworm eggs, and this one is second one is the egg card. So in this way, you brought from the sericulture centers or district sericulture offices or central silk board, brought to the silkworm rearing house and then kept in the dark place for the uniform rearing. It is also called as black boxing. So within 9 to 10 days, the silkworm egg hatch into the first instar larvae, and the process of transferring then you can take the brushing. The brushing is the process of transferring of the silkworm rearing tray is called brushing. You can see in the picture how we take the brushing of the silkworm. Suitable time for brushing is in the morning at 10 a.m. Eggs at the blue heads egg stage kept in the black boxes on the days prior to the hatching. The next day they are exposed to the diffuse light so that the larvae hatch uniformly in response to the photic stimuli. About 90% hatching can be obtained in one day. And you prepare the bed and you take the brushing of the newly hatched larvae. So you can see in the first picture how we take the brushing of the larvae. Then then we take the brushing of larvae, we have to prepare the bed and how to feed the silkworm. After brushing, the bed is prepared by the collecting the worms and mulberry leaves together by using a feather in the tray. The bed is spread uniformly using chopsticks. The first feeding is given after 2 hours of the brushing. Feed bed is layer of chopped leaves spread on the tray on over the larva. The first and second star larvae are commonly known as chalky rearing. Okay, then after passing the first mold, it transforms into the second star larvae and it remains for 3 days. It is remain for 1 to 2 days, and after 2 days, it passes the mold, transform into the second star, and then second star remain for 1 to 2 days, and then in the third instar for the 3 to 4 days, and then transform into the fourth instar, and fourth instar remain for 4 days, and then again after passing the molding, it transform into the fifth instar stage. During the rearing, bed cleaning is must. Periodical removal of the leftover the leaves of the one, because when the silkworm feeds on the leaves, there is the leftover is there, excreta is there. It it should be required. Cleaning should be required. It is called as a bed cleaning. It is necessary for the proper growth and the proper hygiene. Then another important factor is that the spacing. Provision of adequate space is of great importance of vigorous growth of silkworms. As the grow grow in size, the density in the rearing bed increases and conditions of overcrowding are faced. The rearing space increases from the brushing till the time the maturation. It helps in healthy growth of silkworms. Then after the first and the second star, then second star passes into the third into the fourth, and then the fourth and the fifth stars are reared in the wooden bamboo trays. This method is called as late age rearing. Okay, and for the late age rearing, self rearing, reared in the self rearing or the floor rearing or the shoot rearing. In self rearing, the rearing trays are arranged one above the other in the tier on the rearing stand. You can see in the first photograph that there are the rectangular tray kept on one above for the self rearing, and which accommodate 10 to 11 tray in the single rack. This method provides enough space for the rearing, but it is uneconomical as it requires large number of labor to handle the trays. Nowadays, rarer uses platform made up from the bamboo, and it is cheaper than the tray rearing and saves the labor. In the second photograph, you can see there is a platform rearing made up, and the rack is made up of bamboo. And this is the second install, the fourth install and the fifth install. Okay, then when it reaches the fifth install, because the fifth installs are the Horaceous feeder, and they feeds voraciously on the older mulberry leaves, because older mulberry leaves having a maximum number of protein, that is sericin, and the fibrin, which is the content of silk fiber. They accumulate in the silk gland, and they, when they get mature on the ninth or 10th day, they transfer from, and they wander here and there in searching of space and oozing out the liquid that is called as silk. And then that type of silkworms, the mature silkworm, fifth instar, are transferred on the mount edges. This is called as mounting stage. When larvae fully mature, they become translucent, their body shrinks, and they stop the feeding and start stretching of the suitable for attach them for cocoon spinning and the pupation. They are picked up, put on the montages, the worms attached to the spiral montage start the spinning. You can see in the first picture spinning how the silkworm spin their cocoons. Then the spinning period requires a 4 to 5 days. Within a 4 to 5 days, the silkworm complete spinning process and form the compact cocoon. You can see the compact cocoon in the second picture. This is a scaffoldings having a number of cocoons are there. They are completed the spinning process. And after the 1/5 day, you can harvest the cocoon from the chandrika. So what is the harvesting? The larva undergoes one metamorphosis inside the cocoon and becomes the pupa. In early days, pupal skin is tender, ruptures easily, thus the early harvest may result in injury of pupa. This may damage the silk thread. Late harvest has risked the thread, emerging moth. Therefore, the crucial harvest period is the proper time. Cocoons are harvested by hand and harvesting. During the harvesting, you sorted out the flimsy cocoon and the stained cocoon. The good cocoons are cleaned by removing the silk from floss and collect into the gunny bags or any plastic bags for the sold. These cocoons are sold by the farmers to the cooperative societies or any reelers. The price of the cocoons are depending on the rain data and the reeling parameters. So in this way, the life cycle of cycle of silkworm worm mixture completed the 35 to 30 days, but larval period is 28 days. During the 28 days, you will get the compact and good cocoons, and that cocoons you collect in the gunny bags and sell it to the market. Then during the silkworm rearing, you have to take the care, and that the care, if you don't take the care, there is a chances of disease appears in the silkworm rearing. During the silkworm rearing, first of all, you have to maintain the temperature. If you don't maintain the temperature, fluctuation in the temperature, there is a chances of viral disease comes up. This the first picture shows. The first one is the normal silkworm, and second one is the diseased silkworm by the viral. You can see the segmental swellings in the silkworm body, that is the viral, but there is no there is no control, so precaution should be taken. Then in the second photograph, you can see the bacterial disease. So how it comes. So if you feed the wet leaves or dusted leaves of silkworm, the bacterial disease comes. These are symptoms are the sluggishness in the body, and when it die, the silkworms completely petrified and bad smell comes. There is no control in this disease. Only you have to dust the archaeo powder, Then another third one is the muscardine. So proper, if you are not taken the proper cleanness, because we have seen when the silkworm fades, there is a fecal matter, there is a remaining amount of leaves are there. It creates the humidity in the rearing room or rearing tray, and the fungal disease appears. As soon as what are the symptoms? The symptoms are the sluggishness is there, then they they lost their appetite, and when they die, the larvae turns into the like a chalk. Then fourth one is the there is a pebrine disease. It is called as pebrine disease, commonly caused by the Nosema bombis. It is not your fault. It is the fault of the those who supply the silk seeds. So if you are to take the proper care, if you don't take the care, so such a type of diseases appears. There is no control on the diseases, but only you should take the precautions and take care of the proper maintenance of temperature, humidity, bed cleaning, spacing, and during the interval, you have to tested about the RKO powder, that is a resin kit Aushad powder. It is easily available in the market, and it is, or you can made it in by home. It is made up of 98% of lime powder plus 1.5% of 2% paraformaldehyde and 0.5% of benzoic acid. In this way, you can control the diseases of the silkworms when the during the rearing of the silkworm. But if you are taken the care of properly, then you can avoid the such a type of diseases in the during the rearing. So, dear friends, we collect the we collect the cocoons after the harvesting of these cocoons goes for the farmers goes in the market and sell to the reelers or any filachers, those who have a filachers for the reeling purposes. So what is then it goes for the reeling purpose to draw the silk to take out the silk threads, or you can say that the preparation of the silk threads. The process of removing of the threads from the killed cocoon is called reeling. The cocoons are cooked first in hot water at 90 to 97 per degree centigrade for 10 to 15 minutes to soften the adhesion of the silk threads among the cell. As you know, we have already discussed because silk thread is made up of two type of protein, that is sericin and the fibroin. Inner part is fibroin and outer covering is the sericin. When it boiled at 90 to 97 degrees centigrade, it loosen it or wall of sericin get dissolved and you will get the end of the thread. So loosening of the threads separate freely and to facilitate the unbinding silk threads you can means that you collect the thread of the silks. This process is called cooking. Cooking enables to the sericin protein to get softened and make unwinding without break. The cocoons are then drilled in hot water with the help of suitable machine. This machine unwind the fiber of silk or threads from the cocoon. Silk fibers then converted into silk threads to make different kind of silk fabrics like silk saris, etc. by the weavers. Now, I will show the small video clip how the thread, how the thread take out or how the cocoons reels with the help of machine. You can see the video clip and you will get the idea of the silk reeling process. So you can see here is a small reel. So this is the silk reeling machines having a tray. In the tray there is a hot water. The hot water is about temperature about 40 to 45 degrees centigrade temperature. This is the hand cherka for the spinning of the thread from the stained or the flimsy cocoon. This is the reeling machine. Having it is a multi-end reeling machine. The small wheels are there. This is the cocoons. You can see here dried cocoons boil in the pot at 95 to 97 degrees centigrade in the hot water to dissolve the ball of sericin and remove the floss, and then you can see how that lady boils the cocoon in the, and you can see there is a number of flosses there, there is a silk threads are there, and that boiled cocoons are transferred to the tray having a 40 to 45 degrees centigrade temperature. That lady collect the waves from the silk cocoons and through the crosshair frame and the distributor attached to the small reels. The small reels having a 60 to 70 centimeter of circumference, and here she collect the raw silks. So she had taken 8 cocoons or 10 cocoons, but it should be maintained because you have taken 8 cocoons means that that thread is a 18 denier. So you should maintain the uniformity. You always maintain the number of the cocoons during the reeling. So in this way, process is called as the silk reeling process. So you can see there is a rod. You distribute the thread on the silk reels. So to avoid the intermingling of the threads. Then that small reels transferred to this is another machine that is called as re-reeling machine to prepare the standard type of hang. The circumference of the standard type of hang is 200 centimeter. So for the further process, it requires that. So there are a number of processes are there: doubling, single twisting, double twisting, and then after double twisting, it goes further in. Here you can see the hand spinning process by using a charka wheel. It is used for the flimsy cocoon. So I think you might have got idea about how the silk reeling process is going on and how the silk collect on the reeling machine. So go through it and got an idea. This is also a silk, but it doesn't give a continuous thread. On the reeling machine, when you reel the cocoons, it will give the continuous thread. That continuous threads, single cocoons have 1000 to 1500 meters of the threads, but in the bivoltine race, if there is a hybrid race you can use, they have 700 to 800 meter of the threads. So from the 1 kilo of cocoons, you can reel the 100 gram of thread. So in this way, you collect the thread from the reeling machine and prepare the standard type of hang. That's also you can store at normal temperature by twisting them and by making the bales in the storerooms for 6 months. But after the 6 months, you can it's sold into the market. Otherwise, the moisture of the thread is less, and there is a chances of breaking of the thread during the weaving process. So now we discuss about the opportunities in the sericulture industry. The sericulture, being a cottage industry, plays an important role in employment generation and poverty alleviation. It is one of the most profitable activities in the rural sector. Third one is availability of indigenous technology at low cost, regular and quick returns from, because silkworm have a very, the life cycle of silkworm is a very less. It completes about 30 to 35 days. Within a 28 days, the larval period is very less. Within a 10 to 28 days, it completes their spinning process and they harvest the cocoon and you directly sold it in the market. So within 1 month, you can get the money from by the rearing, money from the by rearing of the silkworms. So fifth one is the large demand and popularity of the hand-woven silk in the West. Strong domestic demands coupled with the use of silk garments on festive occasions, large production gap to meet the domestic demand, scope of establishing the large production units uh, and organized sector. So when you gone through this lecture, you can see that within 1 month, you can earn a lot of money. If you have a 2.5 acre of land or 1 hectare of land, in the 1 year, you can earn 1 to 1.5 lakh rupees per annum because you have to take 6 to 7 generation or 7 rearing per year, but you have to maintain the mulberry plant. If you have mulberry plantation, you have alternate arrangement of the mulberry plantation, you can take 6 to 7 generation per year and earn up to the 1 to 1.5 lakh rupees. So in this way, I think you might have got an idea about the sericulture, how sericulture industry is important to get the self-employment in the rural as well as in the urban area. At last, before I leave the session, before I leave the session, once again, I am thankful to organizer for inviting me as a resource person and give me an opportunity to speak before you. Thank you very much. And I'm also hope you all are satisfied with this informative lecture on sericulture. Thank you very much.